All right, let's do this again. My name is Mr. LeBlanc. I'm a Catholic religious educator. I'm answering questions that my students really have asked me in the classroom about the Catholic religious tradition. This is this student's great list of 3 questions, and it's the second of 3. So here we are on the series. This is a deep thinking student. The question is there ever times that Christians disagree in God's teachings? Is there ever times that Christians disagree in God's teachings? Now, I'm not sure exactly where this question's coming from, so I'm going to interpret it in a whole bunch of ways, but basically no matter how I interpret it, the answer is yes. Yes, there are lots of times that Christians disagree, and that's because Christians are people, and people have different opinions, and people disagree with each other. But I would say, I'm going to take it at the first step, like this Christian, yeah, actually, there are some times when I don't like what God's teaching me. This is true. There are times when I think, God, why are you teaching me to forgive this person who has hurt me unfairly? They were unfair. I don't like that. I'm angry at them. You want me to forgive them. That sucks. I don't want to do that. Right? So sometimes I'm actually disagreeing. When God is teaching me the way to live my life in a good way, when God is teaching me to trust in Him and trust that His way of life is good for me and is actually going to lead me to greater happiness, there's a part of me that just puts up the resistance, right? And slowly, bit by bit, God, with His grace and His patience, His endless patience with me because I'm silly and stupid, He kind of calms me down. And He kind of keeps teaching me firmly and clearly. He shows me that the path of forgiveness is the only way that I actually am going to have any peace in this life, how I can be close to Him. And eventually, I did disagree with God's teachings, but eventually I begin to see the wisdom and I begin to live them out. Now, there's another interpretation of this. Do Christians disagree amongst themselves about what is God teaching? And that answer is clearly yes. So if you talk to Christians, you're going to hear that some Christians think that some things are okay, while other Christians think it's a sin. And other Christians think that something else is okay while something else is a sin, or that first thing is a sin. And that can get really confusing. And it can also be frustrating, especially when people of any religious bent or non-religious bent are saying, you need to do this. That's really frustrating because if there's somebody that I'm not in a relationship with or somebody just random stranger and she's just yelling at me, oh, LeBlanc, you're so bad, you're doing the wrong thing, you're sinful, you're not teaching the right thing. Like I can't really have a conversation with that. That's just noise, and it just makes me feel uptight and tense, and I have a sense of my own sin, and so I get defensive, and I'm like, no, you're the one who's sinning. So Christians fall into that just because we're sinful people, and we also, we want to hang on that there is a path to goodness and life and freedom. There's a path to living with God and walking with Jesus every day, and it calls us to make tough choices. But it's easier for me to talk about your tough choices than it is for me to face up to my own tough choice, to actually live morally and to try to choose what is right. It's kind of back to the first answer there. So Christians do disagree about about lots of teachings, not just moral teachings like this is right and this is wrong, but even things about God, about the Bible, and about different interpretations. But I would say that that's actually part of God's big plan. I'm not going to say it's a part of a strength of Christianity because it does lead to division. But I think God does have a big plan where, yeah, every human being has their own opinions. Yeah, every human being, every Christian is on their own journey to God, but at the same time we're journeying together. And so there is going to be differences of opinion, differences of perspective. And there's a truth about God's love for us, about His saving plan in the world. But the fact that we can discover it, not just through our own experience, but to also journey with somebody else as they experience God's love for them in the way that's appropriate for them, that's actually, in the big scheme, it's going to work out to be awesome. In the meantime, sometimes we get into stupid arguments. And the last one would be, are there any times that Christians, this is my last interpretation, what about a Christian who disagrees with God's teachings? as in like disagrees with what the church is teaching. Like, you're telling me that I should go to church on Sunday, and I don't want to go to church on Sunday. Well, I mean, that's pretty close to what I started with. But what if you're like, I don't think the church, or I don't think the religious people are teaching correctly. I'm just going to do what I think is the right thing to do. Well, I would say that, yeah, there are times when Christians disagree with teaching, but more often it's that we haven't yet come to understand them. Almost always it's like we don't really understand the teachings. And being confused about the teachings, or even not being really clear about how to put them into our lives, that's not turning away from God. Okay? Sometimes we get a little uptight about whether we're following religion correctly. And the answer is probably not for anyone. But at the same time, the journey that you're going to learn a little bit more about what God's message is for you, that's the only journey that you can be on. Right? You can only understand what God has revealed to you so far, and you can't understand everything that God is. So you're always going to be like, okay, well, what's next, right? So basically, if it's like, well, Christians teach this, or the church teaches this, or God teaches this, and I can't handle that, well, slow down on that. Just wait a second, because actually there's always going to be something that we could grow to understand more about God and about the right way to live, and that's the journey. That's what each of us is doing. So I'd encourage you not to just like put up barriers to say, well, just because of this one teaching, I can't be a Christian, or I can't associate with Christianity. I'd encourage you to not think so black and white on that, and start to say, well, I don't understand that part, but other parts are giving me strength, and I'm going to stick with that until God can lead me patiently to understand more of His truth. Thanks so much. That's 3 interpretations. So I said, is there ever times that Christians disagree in God's teachings? Always. The answer is yes. But the great news is God keeps teaching us patiently in the way that we know, in the way that we need to learn. He keeps speaking to us in ways that we actually can hear, not hiding it, not tricking us, but He'll just patiently give us the next thing as long as we're willing to learn something more. Thank you so much for listening to this answer. I'll be answering a third one in the next little bit. God bless you.